Talking about your inner critic. And the inner critic is a huge part of everybody's system. Everyone I've ever spoken to as a client, and including myself, the inner critic has come up as a very large part of our internal family. And there's good reason for this. First, in IFS, it's really important for us to identify our parts, because without that, everything else is kind of lost on us. So where does your inner critic come up? Is there a specific pattern that you found again and again and again your inner critic is coming up? I think that there probably is. In fact, I know that there is. Because so far everyone has told me about a pattern where they have found this inner critic to come up and be telling them that they are X, Y, or Z. And most often what I hear is that this inner critic is telling them in some form or another that they are hopeless, that they are worthless, that they are not good enough. Does that ring a bell? So try and find a pattern right now in your own life where you have heard that voice come up again and again and again. And then notice that there's another part that comes up with the inner critic. What do you think this other part is? Without the inner critic being able to tell another part that it is worthless, hopeless, not good enough, or whatever variant it may be for you, this inner critic just wouldn't do it. It wouldn't feel like it was doing anything if there weren't another part to absorb that information and to hold on to it and to believe it. So in conjunction with your inner critic coming up in that pattern, notice there is a belief. There is a part of you who believes the inner critic. You're hopeless. I am hopeless. You're worthless. I am worthless. You're not good enough. I'm not good enough. This is a really hard space to be in, because you are feeling the pain of this part in this belief system while the critic is bringing up again and again these reasons why you're hopeless, you're worthless, you're not good enough. And often the inner critic is holding on to memories to show you ways that this is true. And this part just absorbs that and believes it. So what's your pattern when those parts come up? I would suggest writing that down. Writing down your pattern. This is where it happens. These are the parts that come up. I have my inner critic that comes up, and I have this part that believes the inner critic. And it happens again and again and again. And what I hear so often, what I've experienced myself, is that this state is so overwhelming. It's really hard to find our way out of it. The first step in every IFS process, and one of the biggest goals of IFS, is something that we call unblending. And really what that means is just being able to see our parts, to maybe feel for our parts without being our parts. So if we know that in this pattern these two parts exist, we have the ability to unblend, even if it's just a little bit. Because when we're in that state, we can stop and say, I am in that pattern. This part is existing, this part is existing. And that moment, that clarity, unblends. And by unblending, we find ourselves a little bit more. And it's a practice. It's something you practice. You get better at it. But you always do it. And it's a beautiful process. And that's something that you can do right now. You can write down your pattern, what parts come up, what you've noticed in your body, what memories are coming up with those parts, what the beliefs actually are for you, because it might not be that you are being told that you're hopeless. It might be something else entirely. So write that stuff down, because when you're in it next time, you can reflect on that writing. You know, that helps integrate this process of understanding. And you can bring that to light when you're in that process and see if that works for you. See if it helps. I think that it will. With IFS, we firmly believe that every part of us has a really good reason for being there. That every part of us is trying to help us survive. And once we can get past the level of survival, it's going to try and help us thrive because that's what's good for the system. And every part wants to benefit the system. It just does it in different ways because it has different perspectives. So if that's true, if we can just hold that every part is trying to benefit the system, is doing a job to try to help us, what is it that the critic and that part that comes up who believes the critic, what are those jobs? How are they benefiting us? Oftentimes, the inner critic is sending us information that's backing up what it's telling us. So if it's saying that you can never hold down a job, it's going to bring up all these memories and all of this information that says, see, remember this? When you didn't hold this job down here or here or here, remember that? And it's holding on to all of this information and it's giving it to this other part that's accepting it as truth. So why is it doing that? Why is it holding on to this information, and why is it trying to convince this other part that this is true, that it can never hold down a job? I think the easiest thing that we can turn to is going back to childhood. And this is a story that I use with clients sometimes. You going back to childhood and you're out in the garden and you're playing and you're having such a good time looking at flowers and you're playing with these little bugs and you're digging in the earth and you're noticing these little roly-polies and these ants and you're just touching them and playing with them, and you see a bee, this really beautiful little bee with yellow stripes, and it's so interesting, and you go and you reach out and you touch it and you get stung and it hurts so bad. It hurts like crazy. And the next day you go out to the garden and you're playing in the garden and you're seeing these flowers and you're seeing these roly-polies and you're playing with the ants and you're digging in the dirt and you see this bee. And instantly you feel that pain. You remember that pain. There are parts of us that hold on to memories of pain to help us stay away from that pain in the future, to help us avoid that bee sting again. Those are crucial parts of our internal family. The inner critic is often sending us these messages because it has concerns that you're about to get hurt again. The opposite of hopelessness is hope. So if this part was not feeling hopelessness, it might be feeling hopeful. And if it's feeling hopeful, it might get hurt. So it's the belief that it's better to stay in a hopeless state than to get into a hopeful state and have it taken away. If that rings true for you, write that down with the pattern that comes up. Write down your truth. And it might vary a little bit from person to person. In fact, I'm sure it varies a lot from person to person. But maybe there's some truth in that that's helpful for you. The goal is to understand what the job is of your parts, to understand it. Because if we can understand that the inner critic is holding on to these memories in order to protect us from getting hurt again, boy, we can really love that part of us because we can see that it's out there to try and help us. So we can have understanding and compassion towards it. And that's what we want. That's our goal. It's really impossible to feel compassion for something you don't understand. You can do it up to a certain extent, but you really need to get in there and understand it to feel compassion. So the first step in IFS is to see our parts. The second step is to understand our parts. And the last is to develop that compassion and that self-love that we believe naturally heals and grows the system. I hope that